This is a Saber class servant, Musashi Miyamoto, and she's probably one of the most popular Saber in the series. I mean, just look at her design. You can already tell why people like her. But I think there is something way more interesting than just the design. Because the more I look at Musashi, the more I realize something about her feels weirdly different from almost every other Saber in the series. I'm not saying that's a good thing or a bad thing, but she's so far from the usual Saber archetype. And the interesting part is that exact thing that makes her so different from the rest of the Saber Bunch is also the reason so many people got attached to her. So, what exactly makes Musashi feel so different? Well, let's talk about it. After watching the newer Fate anime and comparing them to the older ones, I noticed something about the Saber class. Almost every Saber has this lawful moralistic knight attitude. I mean, I guess that makes sense. Most of them are knights, kings, or legendary warriors. They are literally the knight class. They act honorable, disciplined, and chivalrous. And honestly, I know this might make some people mad, but because of that, they can get kinda boring sometimes. Like, yeah, the knightly attitude is cool and all, but sometimes that exact attitude also makes them feel stiff, quiet, or too proper, I guess. Not a bad thing, of course, but when almost every saber acts like that, eventually they start blending together. I mean, even someone as rowdy as Richard, Roland, or even Mordred still act like a knight at the end of the day. You guys watch the anime, right? Richard acts cheerful, loud, and keeps yapping about Artoria non-stop whenever someone asks about her. But despite all that, you can still tell there is a standard he follows. When he meets Artoria in Imperialty's illusion, he doesn't even bow to her because he's also a king himself. You see what I mean, right? Same with Artoria. Sure, she's an adorable glutton who gets amazed by random stuff and sometimes makes cute noise all the time. But she still has that cold, intense knight side underneath it all. I mean, she is called the King of Knights, so, well, you know. Same with Siegfried. This guy is basically just a wall with morals holding a sword. And honestly, same with most sabers. Again, not a bad thing. It just shows how disciplined they are, and that discipline shapes the way they think, act, and live. Oh, and by the way, I'm talking about the Fate series in general here. So, I'm not counting special event servants like summer versions, Santas, and stuff like that. Because, those aren't really meant to be taken seriously. Or at least I don't take them seriously. In this case, I mean. But then, Fate suddenly dropped a saber that completely throws away that noble knight attitude. A saber that doesn't really act heroic. A saber that feels weirdly loose. Like she's constantly tipsy on life itself, but somehow still completely sharp when it matters. And her name is Miyamoto Musashi. Now, if you're familiar with Fate Samurai Remnant or FGO before, you probably already know who she is. But if you're new to the series, here's the short version. Miyamoto Musashi is one of the most legendary swordsmen in Japanese history. The founder of the Niten Ichiryu style, famous for dual-wielding both long swords and a short one. And because this is Fate, yes, she is also a gender bend. Well, sort of. Actually, no, let me correct that. This Musashi isn't exactly a gender bend version of the historical Musashi. She is an alternate world version of Musashi. In her world, Musashi was born as a woman instead. And because of that one difference, her entire life basically changed. Her father abandoned her for being a girl. She never received the same recognition as the male Musashi. And despite becoming an absurdly powerful swordsman, history almost forgot her entirely. And honestly, that's basically who she is. A homeless, wandering samurai thrown out of her own home, traveling from place to place with nothing but her swords and whatever food she can afford. And somehow, that's exactly what makes her so refreshing. Because from the outside, she honestly looks pretty normal. She's good with swords, she has swords beam like every other saber, and at first glance, she doesn't seem that different. But the more you follow her story, the more you realize how different she is from the usual saber one. You know what? Let's make a comparison here. Let's see how Miyamoto Musashi deal with things compared to how the usual dignified sabers handle them. Because the difference is kinda insane. Let's start with her well, knight mentality. Or you can call it samurai mentality if you want. You see, most saber class servants carry themselves with pride. They protect people, they stand their ground, they fight honorably. And honestly, it's pretty rare to hear stories about knights, samurai, or legendary warriors running away from battles purely out of fear. I mean, sure, fear is human. Of course, there are exceptions. But in most legends and historical tales, especially with knights and samurai, retreating is usually treated as shameful because their entire role is built around protecting something. Knights protect their people and their king, samurai protect their shogun. Running away from battle is basically seen as disgraceful for swordsmen. There is even this old idea that scars on your back are marks of cowardice, because it means you got cut while trying to run away from a fight. I think you can even see this clearly in the anime. Most knight class servants would rather keep fighting and accept whatever outcomes come from it than retreat, unless their master specifically orders them to. But for Musashi, this woman will absolutely run away if she thinks she can win. She prioritizes survival, her own life. Winning the fight can come second. And the funniest part is that Fate actually turned this into one of her skills. She has battle continuation in EX ranked. Now usually when you hear battle continuation, you expect some insane warrior refusing to die and continuing to fight in a half-dead state through pure willpower. But with Musashi, it means something completely different. For her, battle continuation basically means using every dirty trick possible to survive and win later. Like running away, playing dead, even talk no jutsu her enemy just to escape. She doing literally anything necessary to stay alive and come back later for the real victory. And that's kinda crazy. I mean, sure, just running away is already unusual enough. But using every dirty trick possible just to beat your enemy, that's wild coming from Saber. But to be honest though, I actually kinda like it. Because it's so far from the honorable chivalry style you usually hear about in samurai stories. Unfortunately, that skill can never become part of her gameplay kit. Because, lore-wise, that entire skill basically boils down to survive first and win later. So she's basically ditching the battlefield then. Okay, now let's compare another thing. Next is her life priorities or her value, I guess. Her way of life. You see, Miyamoto Musashi really isn't the type to protect people out of pure knightly honor or fight for some grand principle. If I remember correctly, she once basically admitted that she probably wouldn't care that much about saving people if Fuji wasn't there. So, Fuji basically leaked so much good boy aura that this fight junkie got swayed into fighting for good too. If you've watched Fate Camelot, you know how serious the knights there are. Every single one of them has their own way of life, shaped by their morals and beliefs. And I'm using them as a comparison to the usual sabers because this is generally how most saber act, like knights. And they're all gathered in one place. Like, Gawain plainly follows his king because that loyalty is what defines him. Mordred sees the Camelot singularity as both punishment and a chance to reflect on her sins. And Lancelot desperately tries not to betray his king again and his court. All of the saber class characters live by strong principles of their own. Meanwhile, Musashi, this woman is out here fighting for food, money, and booze. That's it. She literally says the main thing she wants from Chaldea is money to pay for food. Well, okay, she also wants to meet Fuji, but let's be honest, we all know which one matters more to her on a daily basis. And this woman eats a lot. The summer 2018 event literally mentioned that she ate 634 bowls of udon in one sitting. Every time she arrives somewhere new, her priorities are basically find food, get drunk, and then look for somewhere to sleep. If she runs out of money, she will use her sword skill to make somebody pay for her. Or just shamelessly beg for free food if possible. And if someone steals her food while she's hungry, she gets genuinely angry over it. Now that we're talking about her like this, I guess we can also talk about another silly thing about Musashi Miyamoto. Well, consider this a bonus about her. But honestly, this woman is hopeless when it comes to relationship. She's the type of person who instantly falls for anyone she thinks looks cool or attractive. Man or woman, it doesn't matter. In other words, she's ridiculously easy to sway. But somehow, despite falling for people so easily, she's also completely terrible at understanding romance itself. Musashi literally admits that she's clueless about her own relationship while confidently claiming she's amazing at reading other people's feelings. And Shimosa immediately proves how bad she actually is at this. At one point, Musashi becomes convinced that Kato Danzo likes Fuma Kotaro, because from her perspective, Danzo keeps avoiding him while Kotaro keeps stealing glances at her and trying to talk to her. Well, the truth is, Danzo avoids Kotaro because she is secretly a mole working for the enemy. Meanwhile, Kotaro keeps looking at Danzo because from his perspective, Danzo is basically his mother. It's just that Danzo herself doesn't realize this because of the summoning system. So, Musashi basically gets the entire situation backwards. And the funniest part, later on, Musashi figures out that Danzo is secretly the traitor, which is hilarious if you think about it, because somehow, she is better at detecting a hidden spy disguised as a poker-faced ninja than figuring out basic romance between people traveling right beside her. But behind all that carefree behavior, Musashi actually carries a lot of hidden dilemmas. And the interesting part is that the story almost never says them directly. Like, for example, how she struggles to maintain relationships because she deeply devoted to Buddhism and completely focused on perfecting her swordsmanship. She does mention this one in her own dialogues, but honestly, it kinda sounds like an excuse at first. But once you start paying attention to some of the important aspects of Musashi's character, it becomes really clear that no matter how lazy, carefree, or easygoing she acts, deep down, she is still a very devoted Buddhist. Or another is the way she keeps hopping between worlds. She acts cheerful about it most of the time, but several scenes quietly show how lonely that life actually is. Like she doesn't truly belong anywhere. I still remember the moment she sympathized with X because she sensed that same feeling from her. X also disconnected from the world around her and keeps desperately trying to form a connection intentionally. And Musashi understands that feeling really well. Honestly, there are a lot of small details like this hidden throughout her story. And because of all those messy yet hidden parts of her personality, people ended up loving her. She started feeling weirdly relatable. Her easygoing attitude feels extremely human compared to the usual dignified heroic spirits. And combined with her insanely attractive design, she absolutely exploded in popularity. Fan art, discussions, appearances in major story chapters, Musashi started showing up everywhere. And just like that, with the writers constantly keeping her around and letting us spend more time with her, Musashi Miyamoto slowly becomes one of the best saber in the series. But, well, famous characters never really becomes famous without getting some negative labels attached to them. There is always at least a little controversy stuck to them somewhere. And surprisingly, Musashi has a few of those too. You see, despite her initial popularity, Musashi slowly became one of the most polarizing characters in Fate. And honestly, a huge part of that happened because of how important she becomes to the story. Since her introduction, Musashi keeps appearing again and again as either the central characters or a major ally. And this split the fandom hard. Some people love it. I love it. I love her. They think her fun personality combined with her surprisingly layered writing makes her incredibly entertaining. And they like that they stay relevant across multiple story arcs since it's always the same Musashi growing over time. People also like that she brings energy and humor into serious chapter without completely ruining the tension. But other fans think Fate focuses on her way too much. To them, Musashi started feeling less like a servant and more like a creator's favorite character. Especially because outside Shimosa, she often appears as the solution to situations that feels impossible to solve otherwise. The biggest example is in Olympus chapter, and it also doesn't help that the game constantly forces player to use her as the support servants whenever she appears in the story battles. Some players really hated that. And then there is the other issue, the other controversy, which is her preferences. You see, Musashi is the kind of person who falls easily for attractive people, right? And sometimes, she talks about younger pretty boys too. The most infamous example happens in Shimosa chapter. The first time Musashi meets Kotaro, she literally says that she wishes he were a little younger. And yeah, you already know how the internet reacted to that sentence. The fandom immediately turned it into a joke that Musashi likes little boys, and eventually, people started spreading the idea that she is basically a PDF. That really damaged her image for some people. It's kinda annoying though, it's frustrating because the truth is way simpler than people make it out to be. You know, Musashi just like cute things in general, and younger looking characters happen to fall into that category for her. That's really it. The same way people think that babies or kittens are cute. But because of the internet is the internet, the joke stuck permanently. And even though most people treat it as a meme, there are definitely fans who genuinely feel uncomfortable about it. But well, at the end of the day, it's just another small controversy floating around the fandom. And honestly, she probably wouldn't even care about any of the drama in the first place. Because compared to all proud kings and disciplined knights surrounding her, Musashi just feels free. I guess that's it for today. Maybe the secret point of this whole video is just that I kinda miss Musashi. So I ended up talking about her a little too much, I guess. So yeah, if you enjoyed the video, feel free to share it around, and I'll see you guys next time.